The radio crackled at 6:18 a.m., pulling Sheriff Marcus Webb from his first sip of coffee. 52 years old, 30 years in law enforcement, and he'd learned to recognize genuine emergencies versus neighborhood drama. But when dispatch mentioned two men in tactical vests claiming to be enforcement officers at his own lakefront property, his jaw tightened. 3 months. 3 months of HOA harassment, threatening letters, and escalating intimidation tactics against the one property they couldn't control. Marcus set down his mug and smiled. They just made their biggest mistake. But this morning, everything was about to change. Where are you from? Tell us in the comments below. And if you're loving this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Now, let's see exactly how this unfolded. This is a story in 3 parts. The violation that pushed a good person too far. The confrontation where power shifted completely. And the resolution where justice was finally served. In the first part, you'll witness how a decorated sheriff became the target of his own neighborhood HOA, the toll of constant harassment, threatening legal letters about a dock that existed before the HOA itself, and the escalating tactics designed to intimidate someone who'd faced down far worse than petty tyrants in polo shirts. You'll feel his restraint crack as they cross from annoying to actionable, from petty to prosecution worthy. This wasn't about ego. This was about principle. Then comes the confrontation that changed everything. The moment Marcus discovered 2 men impersonating enforcement officers on his property, the calculated decision to let them dig their hole deeper, and the revelation that would turn the HOA president's face from confident to chalk white. Watch as professional calm becomes devastating authority, as badges hold very different meanings, and as power dynamics shift so completely that grown men actually whimper. Finally, the resolution brings justice that goes far beyond one morning's confrontation. Charges filed, investigations launched, and an entire HOA board discovering that bullying the wrong neighbor doesn't just end badly. It ends publicly, permanently, and with legal consequences that reshape their futures. Here's exactly how it happened. Marcus Webb had purchased a lakefront property 15 years ago, back when Clearwater Estates was nothing but 12 scattered homes around a pristine Wisconsin lake. The private dock extending 30 feet into Crystal Lake had been part of the original deed, built by the property's first owner in 1987, grandfathered under every zoning law that followed. Marcus loved that dock. After shifts dealing with domestic disputes, property crimes, and the endless weight of keeping Dane County safe, he'd sit at the dock's edge with a fishing rod and let the water sounds wash away the darkness his job required him to carry. His late wife Sarah had loved it too, right up until cancer took her 2 years ago. Now the dock wasn't just property. It was memory, sanctuary, and the one place Marcus felt close to her again. The HOA had formed 5 years back when the neighborhood expanded to 43 homes. Marcus had watched it happen with the weary cynicism of someone who'd seen power corrupt good people in far more serious contexts. He'd served on the initial board briefly, long enough to establish reasonable rules, then stepped away when his wife's diagnosis demanded his full attention. He paid his modest dues, maintained his property immaculately, and assumed his law enforcement background would buy him the respect of being left alone. He'd been wrong. The first letter arrived in March, certified mail with an official-looking seal. The HOA, now under new leadership, specifically one Gerald Hutchins, a retired insurance adjuster with delusions of authority, demanded Marcus remove his dock. It violated aesthetic guidelines established 8 months prior. Never mind that Marcus's dock predated the HOA by decades. Never mind the grandfather clause in the original covenant. The letter demanded compliance within 30 days or face escalating enforcement actions and daily fines of $200. Marcus had responded professionally. He'd sent copies of his original deed, the 1987 construction permits, legal precedent establishing grandfather rights, and a polite but firm letter explaining that the HOA had no legal authority over pre-existing structures. He'd assumed that would end it. He'd underestimated Gerald Hutchins' need to win at any cost. The second letter came 4 weeks later. this time threatening legal action and claiming Marcus's dock violated new environmental impact assessments. Marcus made 3 phone calls to his attorney, to the county clerk, and to the state environmental office. All confirmed what he already knew. The claims were fabricated, the threats legally baseless. But Gerald wasn't backing down. He was escalating. Then came the parking tickets. Marcus would find citations tucked under his windshield wiper claiming he'd violated HOA, parking rules that didn't exist in any official documentation. He'd discover orange spray paint marking his lawn's edge, accompanied by notices claiming his grass extended illegally onto common property, except property surveys proved otherwise. Every 2 weeks brought new harassment, each incident carefully crafted to stay just barely on the legal side of actionable. Each one designed to wear him down, make him sell, make him leave. The breaking point came on a Saturday morning in late May. Marcus had taken his boat out at dawn, returning 2 hours later to find fresh white paint splashed across his dock's weathered wood. Not graffiti, just destruction. Deliberate vandalism of the place Sarah had loved. He stood there, watching paint drip into water his wife had dipped her feet into during her final summer, and something fundamental shifted in his chest. Marcus Webb had built his career on patience, protocol, and procedure. But patience has limits. And Gerald Hutchins had just found his dot. Marcus spent the next 3 weeks doing what he did best, investigating. He documented everything, installed security cameras, researched HOA board members, and waited for them to make their next move. He didn't have to wait long. The security camera alert pinged Marcus's phone at 6:15 a.m. on June 17th. He was already awake, coffee brewing, watching the lake turn gold with sunrise from his kitchen window. 2 men in black tactical vests emblazoned with HOA enforcement marched down his dock carrying clipboards and cameras. Marcus's jaw tightened. He recognized the setup. It was exactly the kind of intimidation tactic small-time bullies use when legal avenues failed. They were hoping to scare him into compliance. Instead, they just handed him everything he needed. Marcus watched through his phone as the men photographed his boat, measured dock dimensions, and attached a large neon orange notice to his dock post declaring it condemned pending removal. One of them, stocky, mid-30s, buzz cut, spoke loudly enough for Marcus's audio to catch. "Yeah, this sheriff guy thinks he's above the rules." Gerald said, "Make it look official." "Nobody messes with enforcement officers." His partner laughed, adjusting a badge clipped to his vest that read, "Property Enforcement Agent." Marcus set down his phone and walked outside in his worn t-shirt and jeans, bare feet on cool morning grass. The 2 men straightened when they saw him, attempting authority. Buzz Cut stepped forward. "Sir, this structure has been condemned by the Clearwater Estates HOA. You have 72 hours to begin removal or face daily fines of $500. Marcus's voice came out quiet, almost conversational. "Can I see your credentials, please?" Buzz Cut smirked, tapping the badge on his vest. "Right here. HOA Property Enforcement." "We have full authority to—" "I asked for credentials," Marcus interrupted, his tone unchanged but somehow colder. "Government-issued identification, enforcement authority granted by which agency, and your legal authorization to operate on private property." The second man, thinner with a wispy beard, glanced nervously at his partner. Buzz Cut's smirk faltered. "The HOA board authorized us to—" "Let me be more specific." Marcus pulled out his own badge, the silver star catching sunlight. "I'm Sheriff Marcus Webb, Dane County. You're wearing tactical vests with official-looking insignia, claiming enforcement authority you don't possess, and operating under false pretenses. That's impersonating an officer. A felony. Would you like to continue explaining your authority, or would you prefer to remain silent?" The color drained from Buzz Cut's face. Wispy Beard actually took a step backward. Marcus continued, his voice still deadly calm. "Your name is Tyler Brennan. You live at 847 Osprey Drive, 3 streets over. You're Gerald Hutchins' nephew, recently fired from a security guard position for falsifying time cards. He turned to the second man. And you're Jason Kowalski, 1243 Lakeview Court. You drive for a moving company and have 2 prior arrests for misdemeanor assault. Gerald hired you both to play dress-up and intimidate me. How did you? Tyler stammered. I'm a sheriff, Marcus said simply. Investigation is literally my job. The real question is whether you gentlemen understand how serious your situation is. Impersonating law enforcement is a Class H felony in Wisconsin. 3.5 years imprisonment. And since you're doing it under Gerald's direction, that's conspiracy. He faces the same charges. Jason looked like he might vomit. Tyler's swagger had completely evaporated. We didn't mean Gerald said it was just to scare you into what? Removing property I own legally? Property that predates your employer's authority by decades? Marcus stepped closer, and both men actually backed up. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to remove those vests right now and place them on my dock. Then you're going to leave my property. In 3 hours, you're going to appear at the county sheriff's station to provide full statements about who hired you, what you were instructed to do, and any compensation you received. If you do this, I'll consider charging you with misdemeanor false representation instead of felony impersonation. If you don't, I'll have deputies at your homes by noon with arrest warrants. What about Gerald? Tyler asked weakly. Marcus's smile held no warmth. Gerald gets a different conversation. Now take off those vests. Both men stripped off their tactical gear with shaking hands, leaving them in a pile before practically running up the dock. Marcus watched them go, then pulled out his phone and dialed. Dispatch, this is Webb. I need a unit sent to 2847 Pinecrest Avenue, Gerald Hutchins' residence. Tell them I'm on my way and to wait for my arrival before making contact. This is regarding multiple felony charges. He paused, listening. Yes, I'm sure. And yes, I know it's my day off. Some things are too satisfying to delegate. 2 hours later, Marcus stood on Gerald Hutchins' pristine front porch. Flanked by deputies Martinez and Chun, Gerald answered wearing golf attire. His confident smile dissolving when he saw the uniforms. Sheriff Webb, I wasn't expecting. Gerald Hutchins. You're under arrest for conspiracy to impersonate law enforcement officers, criminal intimidation, and criminal trespass. Marcus's voice carried the weight of 3 decades behind a badge. You have the right to remain silent. Gerald's face went from pink to gray. This is about the dock? You're arresting me over a property dispute? His wife appeared behind him, hand flying to her mouth. This is about hiring 2 men to dress as enforcement officers and threaten me on my own property, Marcus said evenly. Tyler Brennan and Jason Kowalski are currently at the county station providing statements, detailing how you paid them $200 each to intimidate me into removing legally protected property. That's not a civil matter, Gerald. That's multiple felonies. They were just supposed to deliver a notice. Gerald sputtered as Deputy Chun guided his hands behind his back for cuffing. I didn't tell them to pretend to be real officers. You purchased tactical vests with official-looking badges, provided them with fake credentials, and instructed them to use the phrase enforcement authority. Marcus held up his phone, showing security footage. I have video and audio of the entire encounter. I also have text messages between you and Tyler discussing making it look real enough to scare the sheriff. Would you like to continue explaining your innocent intentions? Gerald's attorney arrived within the hour, but the damage was done. Tyler and Jason had already provided detailed statements in exchange for reduced charges, confirming Gerald had orchestrated the entire scheme. They'd also revealed this wasn't the first time Gerald had used similar tactics against 3 other homeowners in the past 2 years, though none had filed formal complaints. Marcus ensured those families were contacted. 2 immediately came forward with their own evidence. The HOA emergency board meeting that evening was standing room only. Marcus attended in full uniform, carrying a folded 3-inch stick. When Gerald's wife tried to defend him, Marcus calmly presented timeline documentation of every harassment incident over 3 months, proof of the vandalism, and sworn statements from Tyler and Jason. The board voted unanimously to remove Gerald as president, terminate his board membership, and hire an independent attorney to review all of his actions as president. 4 other board members resigned within the week, either complicit in Gerald's schemes or unwilling to face the community. Backlash got Gerald ultimately pleaded guilty to reduced misdemeanor charges falsely, representing official capacity, and criminal mischief. The felony charges were dropped in exchange for his resignation from all HOA positions, a public apology, full reimbursement for Marcus's dock repairs, and legal fees totaling $14,000, and 100 hours of community service. Tyler and Jason received probation and fines. More importantly, the HOA's new interim board immediately passed resolutions protecting all grandfathered structures and implementing oversight procedures, preventing future abuse. 6 weeks after that morning confrontation, Marcus sat at the end of his dock, the white paint long scrubbed away, watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of amber and rose. His daughter Rachel, visiting from Madison, sat beside him with her own fishing rod. "Mom would have loved how you handled this," she said quietly. Marcus smiled, remembering Sarah's fierce protection of this place. "Your mom taught me that standing your ground isn't about ego. It's about principle." Gerald thought intimidating a sheriff would make him powerful. He never understood that real authority doesn't need costume badges or fake titles. It comes from knowing the law, respecting it, and making sure everyone else does too. A fish jumped in the shallows, sending ripples across the golden water. Marcus's line tugged, and he reeled in slowly, methodically. Rachel laughed as he landed a respectable base. "Still got it, Dad." "Never lost it," Marcus said, releasing the fish gently back into the water. He'd learned long ago that some battles you fight, some you walk away from, and some the truly important ones you win so completely that nobody dares challenge you again. Marcus Webb had spent 3 months enduring harassment, 3 weeks investigating, and 1 morning delivering justice. And as he sat there in the peace Sarah had loved, rod in hand and daughter beside him, he understood that sometimes the best revenge isn't about punishment. It's about protecting what matters, standing firm on principle, and reminding small tyrants that authority earned through decades of service will always triumph over authority claimed through intimidation. Across the country in Sedona, Arizona, museum curator Dr. Elena Santos received a letter from her HOA demanding she remove the unauthorized garden statue from her front yard. Elena read it twice, then laughed until tears came. The statue in question was a genuine 15th century Spanish colonial artifact she'd legally purchased at auction, worth approximately $200,000. The HOA president had just threatened to confiscate a museum-quality treasure. Elena reached for her phone, still smiling. But that's a story for another time.